Bobby Fischer forces Hector Rossetto into a Zugzwang position where he cannot move any of his pieces, and if he move any of his pieces, it will basically lead to his defeat, and he resigned the match. So let's quickly go through the game, and if you are watching in, do hang on. I'll show you a good tactics which will help you win a lot of matches, which is actually played by Bobby Fischer himself. So this is a Sicilian by black, and after the opening, the knight takes the d4 pawn, the Sicilian pawn, and a6 is played, preventing the knight from and the bishop from coming in here, and c4 is played by Fischer, and Fischer is playing with the white pieces, and Hector is playing with the black pieces. Just to be clear, to be sure, and queen comes to c7 here, and knight jumps to c3, and because this pawn is already out of pushed and out of the way, it's a good square for the knight to be in, and you can just push your pawns later on and create this nice pawn structure. So the knight to f6 by black, and the bishop comes to d3, protecting this pawn twice, and knight to c6, attacking this unprotected knight on d4, and bishop goes to e3, protecting that knight. Knight captures knight, and the bishop captures the knight back, and bishop to c5, attacking that bishop. And instead of retreating the bishop and creating this double pawn structure, bishop to c2 is played by Fischer, and the queen now protects this bishop. And after d6, the black's bishop is also protected now, and Fischer castles on the king's side as of the 11th move, and Hector is still uncastled. And after bishop to d7, the knight goes to a4 with the support of the bishop and the queen over here. And now the bishop takes the d4 pawn over here, and it's captured now. And after that, the rook comes to d8, creating an X-ray attack on the queen, and Fischer brings his rook to d1, creating a trying to control that semi-open d file, obviously. So rook to c1 by Fischer, again bringing his other rook with an X-ray on the queen, and so the queen goes to a5, creating a double attack on the knight. So instead of retrieving the knight and losing a pawn, Fischer played queen to b6, and forcing the exchange of the queen, and the queens get exchanged, and the knight comes to b6, attacking that bishop here. So the bishop goes to c6, attacking the pawn twice, and now the pawn push of f3 happens, completing the pawn structure for Fischer on the king side. So knight to d7, attacking the knight by Hector. And now this is the tactical move that I just talked about. So the knight to d5 is played by Fischer now. So here, as you can see, you can capture this knight with your pawn, but you will get back that piece. Basically, I will just show you what will happen if you capture. If you capture, instead of capturing back with your c pawn, you can capture back with your e pawn now. So once you do this, this bishop here is basically stuck, and you do not have any squares for it to go, because both these squares are covered by the pawn and the bishop over here, and it's under attack in this square, and the retrieval squares are closed by the knight here and by the pawn as well. So because of that, you will get back that piece, and you already got one pawn now, and basically Fischer did that maybe to get a better position in the game here. So after that, when in the game, the knight moves, that this is the best position to be in, and the pawns get captured back, and the game will continue on. So from this position, Fischer played knight to d5, and here instead of capturing with the pawn, the bishop captures, and the pawn captures back, and instead of capturing back, white pushes the pawn uh, into the fifth rank, the black bishop, sorry. So so b4 is played, which is a crucial move, which actually is Fischer is looking to get open this particular c file, which is already semi open. So once the pawns get pushed, he would like to use that to uh, to put his rooks on the 7th rank or on the back rank. So g6 by black, and bishop to a4, attacking the knight, and the pawn is pushed to b6, and the rook comes to d3, and after that the pawn push of f5, which is actually a mistake which led to this Zugzwang position. It was better to move your pawn to a5 over here, but it didn't happen. So after that, rook to a3 by Fischer, and the knight jumps to b8 now, because you can capture this knight and you can win a pawn here. So the knight goes the protecting this particular pawn over here. So as you can see, all of the black pieces are on the back rank and really inactive. So Fischer continues with his pawn march and pushes the pawn, and the pawns get exchanged. And after that, the rook comes here and protect this isolated pass pawn. And now it was the king comes to g7, but it was better to bring your rook over here, preventing this pawn from coming into the 6th and 7th rank and creating more pressure for black. So, but instead the king moved to g7 was played, and now the rook comes to b3. Now both these open files, b and c files, are controlled by Fischer's rook, and now the rook comes to f7, but it was better to bring your rook over here, double up the rook, and get one of these rooks off the board and try for a better position in the end game. So this allow Fischer to play this d6 move. Basically, this pawn is not protected by any of the white pieces, Fischer's pieces, but if you capture it, your knight will be gone. So you cannot capture that pawn, and the knight now comes to d7, which again was a mistake, but it was better to push your pawn to h5 over here. So this allows the rook to come here and to pin the knight, because now it's attacked twice and it's also defended one, but this rook is coming in here, and you will lose the knight or your rook if that happens. So the knight jumps to f8, and now the rooks double up on the 7th rank, and because the king is on the 7th rank, you can exchange it off. And now the black rook captures the rook, and instead of capturing back with the rook with a check, Fischer captured with his pawn. So, and with an attack on the rook here. So the rook do not have any other option but to go to c8, preventing that pawn from queening here. And after that, the bishop to b3 by Fischer, and preventing this knight from jumping into any of these squares. So the pawn push of a5, looking to attack this particular bishop, and to trying to get it displaced so that you can jump your knight here and get this pawn. And because the white king is very far away, it cannot come in directly, and this black pawn is on a dark square, which this light square bishop cannot support as well. So so to prevent that pawn from pushing any further, a4 was played, which prevents that pawn movement. And after that, h6 by black, and pawn to h3 by Fischer, and g5 by black, and g4 is played by Fischer. And once the pawns get exchanged, the pawn is captured back. And basically, this is a zugzwang position where you cannot move any of the pieces. So I'll just show you what will happen. So you cannot move your your rook from here. So if you move your rook, it will be a check like this, and you will lose the rook and the game as well. And from the same position, you cannot move your knight. If you go your knight will be captured. The only good position is for the knight is here. So if you bring your knight to d7, the bishop will come here, pinning the knight, and you will lose the knight as well. So going back, if you because of the bishop here, you cannot bring your king over here into this particular f7 square over here. So the only square available is f6, and if that happens, you can just simply play this move and attack the rook, and once the rook captures it, it will be a check, and your knight will be gone, and basically the game will be gone as well, because you are down by a major piece in an end game. So that's how the zigzag position that Fischer created. Very interesting position where black literally cannot any of them. Even if we move any of these pawn pieces, it will be just captured by Fischer's pawn. So there is no move available, and basically Hector resigned the game as of this position, and Fischer won this match. And it's a great zugzwang to be in an end game basically. So thanks very much for watching. We'll be back with more such videos.